Dan Boody, how can he be described? As an outstanding union leader, a fighter for not only union workers but all workers, his passion in delivering labor's message, his patience in staying on course when times got rough, his dedication to doing the right thing and getting it done, or as a champion of working people. After 43 years as a member of International Union of Painters and Allied Trades District Council 4, including 27 as his business manager, as president of the 10,000-member Buffalo Building and Construction Trades Council for 14 years, and as the first president of the Western New York AFL-CIO Area Labor Federation, Dan Boody has certainly left an indelible mark while serving the Western New York labor community. The second oldest of 9 children born to James and Gladys Boody, who would have thought this sweet little kid would grow up to become the most dominating and outspoken labor leader across Western New York for more than 2 decades. One who would not only help unite so many private and public sector unions under one cause, keeping all together during some extremely rough years under a Republican president and against an array of anti-union forces, but who stepped forward to help write Western New York labor history in the 90s when he led a hard-fought and extremely high-profile battle for a successful project labor agreement at the Buffalo-Niagara International Airport. At the age of 18, Dan became a journeyman painter with DC4 in 1968. In the late 70s, he successfully ran for recording secretary of Painters Local 43. He later became a delegate to both the Buffalo and Dunkirk Central Labor Councils. He successfully ran for DC4's business manager in 1985. 9 times thereafter, he ran for re-election, unopposed, and served a full 27 years in the position. During his time as business manager, Dan oversaw 12 local unions affiliated under DC4, including the Glazers and the Poster Board workers, with 1,600 members across 33 New York State counties.
I actually was the first painting coordinator when Danny came on. That our program was idle for 15 years, the apprenticeship program, and then it was started back up in what it is today. So safety was first and foremost. Naturally, it came out of the training. The apprenticeship training also came. The lifespan of a painter back then when I started was 57. That's when my dad died as a painter, was 57 years old. So we excelled from there, and we showed the reduced comp rates for our contractors, safety, our members live longer. So that all came, I mean, it came from the international down, but we implemented and pushed it up from here.
Over the course of time, he helped turn what some say was a dormant union around, from improvements made to apprenticeship and journeyman training, health and safety, and lead abatement, to organizing, where business agents handed out business cards describing themselves as marketing representatives, to taking full advantage of advertising, marketing, and publicizing his highly skilled and trained membership. Dan was always in the forefront of such forward and progressive thinking.
District Council 4 a number of years ago was only half the size it is today, and we grew through our lead program, our respirator program, assisting our bridge contractors in being successful. And then once we councilized and took on Rochester, Syracuse, Ithaca, Elmira, Binghamton, we continued to grow with our certifications. And he has just been so helpful in allowing us to do the job that we need to do.
Dan was extremely proud of the adoption of the PAP Health and Welfare Fund that benefited DC4's members and was so successful that several other district councils looked to mirror it.
He started the personal account plans. He heard about computers at the time, and he was an opportunist. He delved right into all these new things.
Dan also realized the importance of taking advantage of new and emerging technology, from the internet to social networking to investing in a major texting system so DC4 could stay connected to its membership across the state of New York.
He personifies what a labor leader is. You know, they say leaders lead. He is what they call a true leader. Dan's main focus has always been the membership. How can I make the memberships better, their families better, and setting a standard that we can all live by. His legacy is that he took care of everybody, or tried to take care of anybody, you know, in the labor movement, And that includes the non-union workers as well. He raised the bar for all of us.
Just his undying leadership in moving us forward, his passion. He gets excited sometimes, he gets loud sometimes, but you know it's all for the right reasons. He's not trying to beat anybody up, he's just trying to make them a better person. And I would think that that's the thing that's going to carry us forward, and that's the thing that people are going to remember the most about him.
We did things that I thought would never, and before you know it, boom. And I'd go, "That boy, champ, you pulled it off, you know, you're the man."
He's probably the most eloquent speaker that I've ever heard. If you ask Dan off the cuff any question with regards to labor, he could answer it with utmost accuracy and precision and passion.
I think of friendship. I think of unionism, being a team player, having a team, being a mentor to not only myself but many other people over the 40 plus years that we knew each other.
I saw a man who wanted to turn the labor movement around in this area. And through his dedication and the times that he was out organizing, he would be gone, all day with his friend Larry, and they would go to the Southern Tier, they would walk up and down streets, they would meet with non-union workers, they would try to make them realize how much better their lives would be if they had someone to support them.
During his 14-year tenure as president of the Buffalo Building and Construction Trades Council, Dan was in the forefront, turning the Trades Council, its member unions, and the 10,000 unionized construction workers the council represented into this region's most dominant labor organization.
He walked the walk, and when he walked, he was the guy out in front. He was the guy setting the pace for everybody else. Might not have been the most popular decisions, but they were the right decisions.
At one time, the building trades was the only labor organization across all of Western New York that could boast of having an executive director, a communications officer, and a TV show to help position the union and the issues it championed, to not only to a non-union audience, but to the local political community, which Dan also targeted for assistance in supporting issues, projects, and campaigns important to working people.
He would spend hours and hours reading the bylaws, the Constitution, going through our collective bargaining agreement, trying to find ways that would bring more fairness not only to the worker but also to the contractor.
Dan, a former professional boxer and Navy veteran, also went toe-to-toe with the non-union Construction Merit Alliance and the associated building contractors over the years, turning up the heat through the media and exposing those unscrupulous contractors that took advantage of undocumented workers and paid them less than several dollars an hour. Turn on your TV newscast, and there was Dan with trades reps exposing the use of homeless men at the Tops warehouse in Lancaster.
6 days a week, a van full of men from the city mission are shuttled to work at the construction site. At about 6:30 this morning, we saw a van pull into the parking lot here at the Tops Distribution Center. A group of men wearing hard hats got out of the van and walked into the building. Another group came out and returned to the city mission.
Absent union participation on projects, owners will do everything possible to do a project as cheap as possible, whether it means bringing people from out of state, paying them cheap wages, or bringing people from the city mission.
This is a pure case of exploitation of workers, slave labor. That's all it is.
Union leaders were furious to hear that men are working 12-hour days, 6 days a week with no benefits. Most are making about $6 an hour. They say the non-union contractor is taking advantage.
And certainly you're not getting any money for a pension or for health insurance. You're not getting any money for that. But they keep all the money. They bring in cheap labor and they keep all the profit.
At Cheektowaga Central High School,
A local union group and the Border Patrol find 2 illegal aliens working at a Cheektowaga high school. Asbestos is being removed from the school. The union members tipped off the Border Patrol. They were arrested. They were 2 Yugoslavians. The union says they're going after any company that hires illegals.
How much can I... If it's a sweatshop opportunity, if it's slave labor, whatever you want to call it, it's cheap wages, and this is how they bid, this is how they compete, and this is how they knock the legitimate guys out of getting jobs.
Canisius College, at Sam's Club, and in East Aurora, exposing those non-union contractors who took advantage of a slew of workers. Dan will be best remembered for his work with project labor agreements, many of which have been used over the years by the unionized trades to build Buffalo and Western New York. From the first ever and the second such PLA in New York State at Roswell Park in Buffalo, to the $1 billion Buffalo Public Schools project and the Buffalo-Niagara International Airport.
They didn't have to cancel any flights or divert any airplanes, but it was a mess out at the Buffalo airport late today, and it had nothing to do with the weather. It looked more like a 4th of July parade moving up Main Street. It was actually a huge rally made up of members of the Building and Constructions Trades Council moving along Genesee Street in front of the airport in Cheektowaga, and it caused quite a tie-up. Access to the airport's west terminal actually had to be shut off. What the unions are talking about here is a project labor agreement. It would guarantee that most, if not all, the construction jobs involved in the new multi-million-dollar airport improvement program would be given to local union members.
Building trades guys, union guys are not bad. They just deserve to earn a living for their families and for their kids, and this is what it's going to take to do that.
And he started giving speech and talking, and I couldn't believe how he had everybody roaring and cheering and yelling, and this is what we're going to do, this is how you do it. And I'll be honest with you, I think most people there were just surprised how it turned out.
Led by Dan's commitment and fiery testament to standing up for local jobs for local workers, the trades marched on the suburban Buffalo airport twice with more than 1,000 union construction workers, and once in downtown Buffalo to the headquarters of the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority, in an effort to ensure local workers and minorities were given an opportunity to work at the nearly $200 million project.
It was one of the largest and loudest labor rallies in the Buffalo area in recent memory. Thousands of workers from about 24 unions packed the Hearthstone Manor last night to show their steadfast support for the project labor agreement at the Buffalo Airport Expansion Project.
And we've made a decision that no way are we going to take what they're trying to push on us. And I don't care what it takes. I'll be first in line. First in line.
And while the fight was long and intense, the trades convinced the NFTA that a PLA was a good thing for Buffalo and Western New York workers.
All those in favor signify by raising your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 4. Motion's carried.
The board agreed to enter into a project labor agreement with the unions for the rest of the airport work. The unions support the choice of the contractor for the terminal. They believe Baker Mill and Stewart will
put together a labor agreement that will provide jobs for many, many local people, with the inclusion of the 25% minority worker participation per contractor per craft.
Even though he had enough on his plate representing DC4's membership across New York State and standing up for the rights of unionized workers as president of the Buffalo Building Trades Council, Dadden didn't say no when he was asked to become the first president of the Western New York AFL-CIO Area Labor Federation, which represents 5 major central labor councils across Western New York, whose member unions combine to represent nearly 150,000 union members.
Dan Boody, at the head of the Building Trades and then the Area Labor Federation, and by the way, he did both of them at the same time, which by itself is an incredible feat, kept us alive in a period, and that includes the entire 8 years of George W. Bush. He kept us alive, and he kept us in the forefront of the social movement around Western New York, and he did a good job, I think, a better than good job, a great job of defending people's living standards, people's working conditions, and not just the painters, but everybody's. And I think that if you look back at this era, 25, 30 years from now, you'll say, how did they make it through that? And Danny gets a lion's share of the credit for making it through that.
In addition, Dan also carved out time to sit on the executive board of the New York State Building Trades Council.
I think with the state building trades, Dan brought forth a wealth of knowledge just with labor on all ends. It just wasn't with regard to the building trades, and obviously the state building trades, that's is what we do, is support our members in that, but his knowledge of every issue, statewide bills that were there, any issue regarding organized labor that he brought to the table, and an uncanny amount of knowledge that'll be sorely missed.
While he remains committed to the labor movement, Dan and his wife Nancy of 20 years will now have the time to spend together with their 3 children, their 3 stepchildren, and their many grandchildren, and truly enjoy the fruits of his labor.
Most people that know him know that everything he does is very heartfelt. And he's a very sensitive person when it comes to workers.
Tonight's celebration of Dan's career in the labor movement and those who are here this evening stand as testament to his long, positive, and dedicated career. And while so many are thanking him for all he's done, here are a few special thanks.
Dan, what I'd like to say is thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done for all of us and our families over the years.
Dan, on behalf of the Buffalo Building Trades and all working men and women of New York State, we'd like to thank you for your involvement in organized labor.